Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Friday, August 16, 2019. I am MD. What would happen if you had to rely on others to guide you, to take you by the hands, show you the way? What happened if you were blind? You had to rely on something, someone, dog, guide. It would be awkward, especially if you weren't born that way, because would be quite an adjustment. But what if you think, because you can see with your eyes, of course, but you're being guided by someone, and the irony of things, that person, that individual you may be guided by is blind, but that's the person you're following. What if that's the case? Would you continue to follow that individual? I don't know many people would, but would you? Now, it sounds like something you already know the answer. You definitely would not, in any way, shape, or form, follow someone who is blind, because, gee, that doesn't make any sense. I can see, and then for me to follow someone who cannot? No, not in a million years. At least that's what you may be thinking. That what kind of stupid question is that someone would ask me if I can see? Now, I understand your reasoning. I understand if the individual cannot see, may not know that the one that he or she relies on may also be blind. I understand that, but me, I can see. I don't need anybody to take me by the hands. I don't need anybody to guide me. So in other words, you already determined that, well, it makes no sense, right? For you, someone who can see, to be led by an individual who cannot. You probably receive, or will receive shortly, an invite that says that, well, a blind leading the blind. In fact, it is mentioned in the Bible. Jesus, we started that conversation yesterday in Luke 6:39. Jesus asked the very question, what do you think would happen if a blind leads another blind? Would they not both fall into a pit? Now, that was some sort of use in a parable, as most Christians would already know that Jesus made use of a lot of parables during the time that he walked the face of the earth. And that parable wasn't addressed to people who were literally physically blind, but individuals who actually followed him everywhere he went. individuals were, some of whom were very knowledgeable individuals. And that's the comparison he took. We'll see why in just a moment, and we'll try to find out whether you, being able to see clearly, you may not even wear glasses. And yet, that may just be something you need to hear when we return in just a moment. Yesterday we started the conversation and referring to the Bible in order to make important points that we're hoping that individuals who are Christian, individuals who profess to be Christian, individuals who profess to be who claim to be Christian, at the very least can understand using this frame, because our society is going through terrible time, tumultuous time, and it's not getting any better. And we've been trying every possible way to explain, because this is what we do here at the Fourth Branch. If you joined us before, thank you. Your participation makes the journey a little bit lighter, a tad more bearable. If you join us for the first time, once again, welcome. The Fourth Branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to perfect the union, and in order to do so, we ought to remove the biggest obstacle of all: ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Thus, the importance of eradicating ignorance from our society. Before we jump into the topic for the day, let's tell you a few things that's been happening in the news, and those are relevant. If you join us before, you already know that we do not provide the news. But if there is an item in the news that's relevant to our discussion, and that may benefit or whatever topic or that we're discussing, then we will take a look at that, and we will look at that through the prism of common sense. Yesterday, Donald Trump was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and he had a lot to say. When is it ever that Donald Trump doesn't have much to say? So, of course, the rally in New Hampshire is for Donald Trump to continue trying to rally his base for the 2020 presidential election, which, of course, on the Democrat side, it's the primaries. Republicans have already, well, most Republicans anyway, already determined that Donald Trump is going to be their man. Although at this point there seems to be two candidates who decide that they're going to challenge Donald Trump in a primary. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but nevertheless, we have William Well that's already made it official. He's going to challenge Donald Trump. That aside, Donald Trump was in New Hampshire, and he, of course, was doing what Donald Trump does, ranting, bashing, insulting the other side, the Democrat. Now, he's that guy you're looking at. He's obviously a Trump supporter. And he's the guy who Donald Trump now feels very close to. He was his staunch supporter in 2016, and once again he's there supporting Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, that guy, by the way, is the same guy that proposed to have Hillary Clinton shot. Yes, you heard correctly. Not something he said in private, not something he said in the ears of Donald Trump, but something during a rally he said that Hillary Clinton should be shot. Now, we brought Donald Trump rally from Manchester, New Hampshire last night because a few things. One, as I mentioned, Donald Trump does what Donald Trump always does, which is insulting people. Last night, once again, his own words during the rally. I'm quoting him here. You got Pocahontas is rising, and Donald Trump referred to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas. You've got Kamala, and he said Kamala is falling. You got Beto. Beto is like gone. We'll see what happens. Whoever it is, I don't know that it matters, Trump said. And he referred to Joe Biden. I think Sleepy Joe might be able to limp across the finish line. Maybe I sort of hope it's him. But what attracted our attention is not any of what we just said, but rather Donald Trump, who said to his audience, I'm quoting here, "You have no choice but to vote for me." And let me quote the whole phrase, put it in context as to when he said that. He says, I won the election. That he was referring to the 2016. The markets went up thousands of points. Things started happening. If for some reason I were not to have won the election, this market would have crashed. That will happen even more so in 2020. You have no choice but to vote for me because your 401k, everything is going to be down the tube. Whether you love me or hate me, you have to vote for me. Now, we're not going to spend much time talking about trying to dissect that, but you may recall in 2016, Donald Trump tells you that he is the only one who can solve every problem on the face of the planet. Did he? Can he? Has he? We'll leave it there because that important piece of information will shed some light in today's topic. Now, there is another important news that we wanted to bring forth to your attention as well, because it has some relevance to the topic of the day. That's Rashid Tlaib. She is a congresswoman, newly minted. She's one of the new Congress people who got elected in the 2018 midterm election. She's well, her name clearly says she's from, she's descendant rather of Muslims. And you also may recall that a couple of months ago, Donald Trump went after 4 congresswomen, all minority, 1 black, 1 Hispanic, 2 Muslim, and tell them to go back home. Now, Tlaib happened to have been born right here in the United States of America. In any event, both Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, that's the other individual who was elected in the 2018 midterm election, have been very critical of Israel. They are, after all, Muslim, and Tlaib in particular is directly impacted by what Israel is doing in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, because her mother happened to be in the West Bank. Now, Tlaib and Ilhan Omar wanted to take a trip to Israel, in particular to visit the West Bank, to assess things for themselves. And after the Israel ambassador said he had no problem with that, Donald Trump tweeted for Israel not to allow Tlaib and Ilhan Omar in Israel. Within minutes of tweeting that, Netanyahu barred both Tlaib and Ilhan Omar from entering Israel. There is a certain irony here. We're not going to discuss it now. We invite you to watch the program tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. During which time we will give you a slight update about the primaries on the Democrat side, but we will spend most of the time tomorrow talking about Israel and the Palestine, and under the banner, Israel can do no harm. But today, suffice to say that after much pressure from all sides, Republican, Democrat, even AIPAC, which is Jewish, which is actually very critical of both Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, but they too, members of that group, went against the decision by Netanyahu not to allow Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar in Israel. Mind you that Israel is supposed to be a democratic state in the Middle East. So there is a lot to talk about in that aspect, but let me go and explain that Tlaib has been cleared later on of going to the West Bank to visit her mother, but in not under the banner of Congress, but rather as someone who would go with humanitarian under the humanitarian umbrella. In other words, she would not be able to be critical of Israel. She would not be able to say anything negative about Israel. She first accepted to go under that banner, but she rescinded that acceptance because she said she cannot go there and cannot talk about the atrocities by Israel. And she said she's not going anymore under the humanitarian banner. Now, there is a lot to think about as to why she would not use that opportunity to go and see her mother, who is 90 years old, but rather see the principle of her job here at home as being equally important for her not to make that trip just to satisfy her personal agenda instead of fighting for what she believes is a more important, rather an equally important issue. So she said she's not going under those conditions. And that's something also, as I mentioned, we will talk about a great deal tomorrow, but suffice to say that the fight that Tlaib and Ilhan Omar engage into, those are important pieces of information for Americans to understand, in order for them to know that those people, they're not just talking for the sake of talking. They have their fight somewhat justified. And tomorrow we will, through the prism of common sense, address that particular topic, debating under the title, Israel can do no harm. Yesterday, we started the conversation about a blind leading a blind, and we're not going to repeat all that we already discussed in terms of the analogy used by Jesus. And once again, we want to make certain that we using this particular analogy because, as we mentioned yesterday, we are more familiar with Christian stories than any other religious stories. But it is an analogy in order to help those who are Christian, those who profess to be Christian, those who claim to be Christian, to understand when we discuss predicament here in our society. We did make mention of two very specific passages in the Bible. Luke 6:39, in which it is reported the way that Jesus asked the question, if a blind lead another blind, would they both not fall into a pit? But in Matthew 15, rather, it is reported that Jesus make a statement. If a blind leads another blind, they would both fall into a pit. You don't have to be a genius, you don't have to be a theologian in order for you to understand that. That's pretty simple. And here is just, if you're looking at that, in now part of the screen that you're not looking at is the fact that the person up front currently not looking where he's going, and is telling the others that are following him, all of them blind as well, that to follow his step and to not stray away from the course, because they might just fall in a precipice, which I find the image pretty telling, because that's what Jesus was trying to convey that if a blind leads another blind, would they both not fall into a ditch, a pit rather? Now, the United States of America is one of the worst Western countries in general, but we're talking about the United States, we stick to it. In general, is a Christian, based on Christianity. We even have that in our currency, in God we trust. One good thing about that is the fact that if indeed those who are Christian, if indeed, and there are a lot of good things about Christianity, because it provides a framework for everyone to be able to coexist, for everyone to be able to help one another, because that's what taught in the Bible. That's what Christianity is. There are even passages in the Bible that says if whenever you see when your soulmate was hungry, was thirsty, who didn't have a place to live, who needed clothes to wear, you took care of me. That's in the last day, according to the Bible, when God said to those is welcoming into his kingdom, that you've done all that for me. And the individuals whom God talking to and say that and say, when did we ever do some such thing to you? Because we never actually saw you. I'm speculating here. We never actually saw you. And Jesus would answer, whenever you did those things to any of those people who needed help, it's to me that you have done that. It's me that you have done that for. That's Christianity. So there is something good to like about Christianity. People who are Christian naturally would help others. That's what the Christian faith asks. That's what that's how you recognize people who are Christian. Not because someone say I'm a Christian. In fact, the premise of the Bible is action, not words. Is fruits. You would recognize a tree by the fruit it bears. Not because the tree say, look at me, I'm an apple tree. The premise of the Bible. Now, if you have anybody talking to you and tell you they're a Christian, pay no attention to that individual. Watch what they say, watch rather what they do. Not what they tell you, because what they tell you doesn't matter. Watch what they do. Watch their actions. Because anybody can say they're Christian. The devil pauses all the time as Christian in order to lure Christian into doing bad things. For those who are Christian and who believe in those premises, I'm using exclusively Bible passages in order to explain, in order to drive home the problem our society is confronting today, and to look at the Christians and say, where do you stand there? Because, as I mentioned before, I am exhausted trying to explain that our society cannot progress, our society cannot move forward if we have millions of people, especially people who are supposed to lead the way, people are supposed to be the light of the world. You know, we are the light of the world. That's what the Bible says about people who are Christian. And those people have been so far displaying the darker side of society, of mankind. But they want people to think of them as Christian. So I resort to that, to something they can relate to, something they know, something they heard, something they say they are, and try to bring it home as to that behavior, those actions. You cannot continue to believe you're a Christian if you're doing those things. You're not just fooling, you're not fooling anybody, because most people would not buy that you're a Christian. You're just fooling yourself. So I want to make certain that if you think you are a Christian, I'm giving you a mirror here to look at yourself and see if you can see yourself as a Christian in that mirror. The Bible doesn't care what you say you are. The Bible is pretty direct. It's not words, it's action. Now, before I start giving you excellent example of what actually has been ailing our society, and why it's important, if you are a Christian, to start not just saying you are a Christian, but to start living a life of Christian, is because you are fooling yourself that you're a Christian. But what I'm about to mention would give you a sense as to how much damage you saying that you're a Christian but not living the life of a Christian has on our society. Because there is no such thing as you do something and nothing happen, and it's just you who happen to do something in your home, or you think that doesn't have any impact in society. Everything is connected in this world. And I always bring forth the example of Adolf Hitler. There is not a single thing that happened, no matter where it happened, that doesn't have some sort of impact on this planet. Yes, you may not suffer or even see the ripple effect fast enough, because it may take some time, weeks, months, years, decades even, but you will see the effect. So when you do something, when you say something and you do something contrary, completely different to what you say, it has ripple effect in this world, in future generations, because, as I'm going to show you in just a moment. One thing you should always pay attention to, or one important thing you should always pay attention to, is the individual you accept to be your leader, or the individual or the individuals you accept to be your leaders. And I'm not just referring to political leaders, I'm also referring to religious leaders. Just because someone you accept that individual as a leader, doesn't mean the person is right, doesn't mean the person is doing the right thing, doesn't mean you should follow everything that that person says or does. Even the individual, even if the individual, it's clear that the individual is trying everything, making every effort to live a life that's exemplary, even if that's the case, let alone. Yesterday, I described to you the analogy that Jesus took when he said, if a blind leads a blind, would they both not fall into a pit? And he used that analogy exclusively to refer to people who actually were highly regarded in that time. The Pharisees, they're the one who had access to the scriptures. They're the one who went to school. They're the one who studies. They're the one who understood prophecies. They're the one people went to for knowledge, for answers. And yet Jesus directed that parable at them. They were leaders, people highly regarded. Whatever they say, they had the final words when it comes to religious matters. In fact, it was even more so because at that time, if you're in that position, you're able to guide people into doing the right thing. It's not just religious, it's not just people who were Christian or people who want to live a good life who look up to those people. Even politicians respected those people. You may even recall stories of the Bible of politicians, head of state, who had to travel to faraway places to meet with prophets so that the prophet can do something for them. Yes, those people that were considered people who had knowledge of God, knowledge of the scripture, knowledge, understanding of what's going to come. Those people were highly regarded. And yet, Jesus said, blind leading the blind. That's the context. So, the individual you respect as your pastor, as your leader, doesn't necessarily mean whatever he or she says you should follow, because they could be just another blind individual. And if Jesus were to be here today, that's probably what he would say about those people, because the kind of thing that those people say, those kind of things those people do not qualify them as leaders at all. And those are the people you're following, you're defending, you're willing to fight for. Now let me give you a piece of data before we take a look at the most important aspect of this discussion in terms of what does it mean to be a Christian. According to an article that was published in the USA Today, that's 2018, I believe. During the Carter administration, Jimmy Carter, I think it was 1974, was it? Around that time frame. There were, well, actually, 80% of the US population was considered Christian. 80%. 2006, it's only 54%. What happened? Why such a huge drop in Christianity? Because obviously the principle of the Bible are good principle. In fact, if you look at the Constitution, there are a lot of things that go hand in hand between with the Constitution and a lot of principles of the Bible. So what happened? I don't know if you start making the connection already, but it should start the picture of the erosion of our democracy start becoming more and more pronounced for you to see. 80% under Jimmy Carter, 54% in 2006. Now, needless to tell you that it continues to go down. So what happened? Why are less and less people in the United States have become less and less interested in Christianity? You want to take a guess? Well, let me not put you through that torture and give you a better hint. Remember earlier I mentioned you can call yourself Christian from today to doomsday, but your actions speak louder. What you do speak louder and louder. You know what has happened between the presidency of Jimmy Carter in 2006? If you take a look in the mirror, it should not be that difficult. You know why that number has dropped so drastically? The younger generations have been watching the very people that have been saying they're Christian, that have been professing Christianity. You know, your children, your grandchildren, they've been watching you. They've been listening to you. They've been observing you. When I say you, not just you, they watch the neighbors, they watch the society, and they see all those people that have called themselves Christian, all those pastors that have been saying that you should not do wrong, you should not talk this way, you should not do that thing. They've been watching that day after day, week after week, years after years, decades after decades, and one thing that becomes so common to them to see is the hypocrisy of those people who call themselves Christian. Oh yes, my parents say they are Christian. You're not going to believe what they have done to the neighbors. You're not going to believe what they have called black people. You're not going to believe how they have lied about others. No, Christianity is not in a downward spiral because of anything Democrats have done, as Republicans seem to like pointing to. No, because you, the Christian, who profess to be Christian, who profess to be evangelicals, you've been doing things that are contrarian to the biblical principles. Your children see it, your grandchildren see it, your neighbors see it, even people in your neighborhood, your sister, in your community, they've been watching you talking nonsense about being Christian. So your children, as soon as they have the opportunity to leave your home, I'm not going to be Christian because I see what my father does. I see what my mother does. They say they're Christian, they go to church. But this is just a cover. Yes, what you do. Remember the ripple effect I just mentioned to you? You think it's a joke? The pastor at home is nasty to his wife, kicking his wife, beating his wife, and then he come to church. He's telling you the best thing that God would do for you if you're faithful. If you do this, you do that, and at home, the wife knows that he's a monster. The kid knows that he's a monster. And in public, he looks like a saint. He talks like a saint. Yes, you, the Christian, who've been claiming to be Christian, who've been professing to be Christian, you the one that's causing that drop in Christianity in the country. Now, that's for the personal aspect. Now I'm going to give you another hint. Was that a good hint? I hope so. Recall how Republicans always call Democrat liberal because they want this for they want that, they want the other, but Republicans, they would rather the poor die than helping the poor. Oh, that's their mantra. Oh, I heard the presidential candidate after presidential candidate, they so much know that it works that they use that as the platform. From Ronald Reagan to today, that's what they use as their platform. Now, in order for them to succeed, they use a straw man, blacks, to say those are the people that always looking for help. So we're not going to give them help. You know, blacks, they should just go to work because they're lazy people. And guess what? Their message worked because that's always what moved those candidates forward. And by the way, they're Christian. I forgot to mention that. They're Christian conservative. They don't have any kind of charity and sympathy for those who are struggling financially, but they're Christian. Instead of looking in the mirror and see the message that what they're talking about is actually against every biblical principle, they accuse Democrats of being socialists, and they tell you, we're not going to give our money to people who are lazy, and they have the gall, usually white people saying that, they have the gall to call black people lazy. They, the ancestors, work those people for 20 hours a day, slaving while they sitting in at home, sipping coffee, doing nothing, and they have the gall to call black people lazy. Now that's a story for another day, but I had to give you the full picture of what the kind of behavior that people who call themselves Christian have, and they want people to think of them as Christian. Now, why exactly Christianity had fallen and continue to fall? It's because it's not just in your neighborhood, it's not just in your house, it's not just in your community, but even publicly they're doing things that clearly say those people cannot be Christian. If you think about it from a Christian perspective, those are the people who would have their arm open to help people in need. They're the one that says, we're not going to do that. We're going to squeeze those people until they die. And they are Christian. Yes. And for the record, And I think I mentioned that before. I even give example of such. I don't know if I still have that. Probably not work, but we'll come back to that at some other point. But I gave the example before and show you that the people who actually take advantage of what the benefit that we have, the benefit that white running for office always try to point as if blacks are the one on welfare, as if blacks are the one that they helping, show you that the number of whites who are taking advantage of those things are twice as many as blacks. Now this is not, I bring that for only one reason, because as far as I'm concerned, in a society, in an industrial country where there are people who are doing good, who are doing well, it's a Christian society. It's actually a good thing for people who have to help those who don't, black or white. But white in general, the racists in particular, in order to rally support, what they do is they use a straw man, blacks, to tell their supporters that let's cut those people off the whole thing because they're the one really on welfare, they're the one collecting food stamps. Let's just cut them off. So it's more palatable for them to say that. It's more palatable for their supporters to say, yeah, why not? They're black. No, the majority of the people who benefit of those government programs are white, not black. But for me personally, it is a good thing for our government to help those in need, regardless of which social class, regardless of which race they are. But the irony of the things is, those people who profess to be Christian, who are supposed to be compassionate, who are supposed to actually lend a hand to those in need, are the very people that are actually suggesting not doing it. And in order for them to succeed, they're saying, well, it's a Democrat, they're socialists, they want to give away stuff. Why Christianity is going down? It's because of that. Because saying you're Christian doesn't cut it. You have to act as a Christian, following the biblical principles, being compassionate, helping those in need. In fact, the Bible even gives you an example so that you can know what to do. Whenever you do those things to any of those people in need, you do that to me. That's God talking. What do you think the reverse is? Whenever you close your heart, you refuse to help, you're kicking down those people in need. Fill the blank. So no, going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Reading the Bible doesn't make you a Christian. It can help get you there. The Bible principles are exclusively on actions, not words. So I take offense personally whenever I hear the media referring to Republicans as Christian and Christian conservative. I take great offense on that, because those people's actions are not those of Christian. I understand they like the label, but it is time that we start not using that label for those individuals because they are not, by any definition of Christianity, they're not Christian. We can call them religious people, but they're not Christian. So Christianity is going down because for many, many decades now, we have had blind leading the blind. Whenever you have that, society has to be going on the downward spiral. The Christian society, the religious society, there is no more compass. The integrity, the honesty, all that is gone. Their action have caused that problem in the country. They continue to call themselves Christian. People continue to refer them as Christian when their children, their grandchildren, their neighbors, the whole society watching them doing what not anything different from what the evil would do, the devil would do, but they want to be called Christian. Yes, that's why Christianity is going down in our society. And with it, the erosion of our democracy. Want proof? In 2016, 85% of those who claim to be Christian, 85% of those who claim to be evangelical went to the poll and voted for the vilest individual on the planet. Yes, you can call yourself Christian, but your actions, not so much. According to the University of Virginia Center for Politics, in 2018 they put out a long document providing a breakdown of the U.S. Political landscape. According to that report, in 2018, there were 32.5 million Republicans and close to that many people identify themselves as independent. Now those are registered people, not people who did not say, who did not put their name as part of the process. So those are registered individual. So that what that means in lame term is those are good numbers, to the extent that the people who register themselves as whatever did not lie about it. Okay, So 32 million, 32.5, 32 million Republican, 31 million independent. Now, out of the 32 million Republicans, 24 million, approximately that, not exactly, approximately 24 million of that, 80%, claim to be Christian. I mentioned before that maybe there is a deficiency of knowledge and understanding in the Republican circle when it comes to terms, when it comes to certain words, because they may not necessarily, they may use it because, you know, everybody's using it to sound good, like, I'm a patriot. A great word, sounds good, it sounds wonderful, why not? Put me in. I'm a Christian. Add me in. It sounds good. I'm a Christian conservative, even better. Count me in. Now that does something to our society. And the reason it impacts our society in such fundamental ways is because you may recall that I talked about that before, that for a very long time, our society relinquished the claim that the Republicans have made, that they, you know, the party that promote Christianity, that have Christian values, right? They promoted that. They embraced that. There's nothing wrong with that. With being Christian, there's nothing wrong with embracing, you know, the whole biblical principles. So it's not just the fact that they embrace Christianity, but they made a lot of effort. They do a lot of propaganda, if for lack of a better word, marketing, to promote that. Democrats have always accepted that, although, as I mentioned in an article, that was never the case. But that's a story also for another day, and I proved that during the time that we were talking about slavery, that Republicans, well, at that time it was Democrat, but those same people that were Democrat now are the ones that are Republican today, because there was a complete shift. Yes, it's just a word that shifted, but it's the same, exact same people, nothing different. At that time, they claimed to be Christian, they went to church, they were doing everything that would give them the appearance of Christianity, while their actions were the most horrible thing, that something that even the devil would cringe at doing, and yet they were doing it. So I already went through that it was always that way, that they claim to be Christian, but their actions always say a different thing. Nevertheless, the whole country always went along with it, except and even relinquish that to the Republicans. But as I mentioned, when you do things, it has ripple effect. It may take years, decades even, but rest assured, it has impact. You cannot keep lying to your kids and expect that kid later not to act in a way that clearly shows that doesn't trust you, doesn't believe anything you say, because you've been lying to the kid. And you may think it's okay, but as the kid grows up and seeing it's lie and lie and lie, yes, the kid will move away from your lies. By the same token, if you've been saying you're Christian, you've been taking the kids to church, you've been preaching the kid how to behave, how to be godly, but everything that you do clearly shows you not. What do you think will happen eventually? So, as time went by, this claim that the Republicans have clung to becoming obvious that that's not the case. Now, a lot of us saw that well before today, because we've seen how the actions never match the words. Now we are going through a process where we're seeing that all those lies they've been telling their children, their grandchildren, now catching up with them. They never thought it would, but that's just the way it works. So in 2016, those people who call themselves Christian, who call themselves Christian conservative, those people listen to their religious leaders who told them that Donald Trump is an instrument of God. My God! And there is no one who had the spirit of discernment to say, what the hell? Sometimes you see why sometimes I feel disheartened, discouraged? Because I don't think you need a degree in college for you to, if you hear your religious leader, your pastor say something like that to you, I don't know that you need a diploma in theology to see something wrong with that picture. But that's not what happened. They all swallowed the lies. They all went to the poll, and they all voted in office the vilest individual ever. Not just that, incompetent, a crook, a liar. Those are not my words. They're all documented. And they knew that before they voted for Donald Trump. They know they were voting for a crook. They know they were voting for a liar. They know they were voting for a scoundrel. They know they were voting for someone who simply should not be anywhere near our government, let alone become the president of the United States. They all Christian went to the poll, and that's the individual they voted for. But you know what's worse? Today, those same individuals still do not have anything coming out of their eyes still do not have any religious leaders that actually read the Bible and see, we made a terrible mistake. That guy that we thought was an instrument of God is demeaning people, debasing people. He doesn't help those in need. That guy cannot, not possible. But that's not what we're hearing. According to the latest poll, Donald Trump still enjoys 85% support from those who claim to be Christian. Remember in 2016, before the actual election, all of those people were hiding. They would not even say they would support Donald Trump because it was shameful to do so, because they recognize it's wrong. So they did not say anything. And by the way, that's the reason that those who do polling got it so wrong. Because those people who call themselves Christian, who profess to be Christian, they were so ashamed that they would support somebody like that, so they did not say they would vote for him. What happened between then and now? Now they're so comfortable saying, we Christian, we don't care. Now they come out and say, yes, we're going to vote for him again. I can see the Christian world crumbling pretty quickly after that. And as you can see, the process already started. And I can tell you, the idea of Christianity will die. And not because God himself has changed, but because those people who profess to be Christian, those religious leaders who profess to be evangelicals, they have been doing the greatest harm to society. It would have been better for them not to say a thing, not to get involved, but instead they forcing people who go to their respective congregation to follow their footsteps. And those people, unfortunately, as Jesus said, blind leading the blind. Not without consequences, blind leading the blind. You think there is hope for America? Today, when you talk to any of those, Christian, Donald Trump is great for the economy. He's doing a great job. As I already pointed out, the flaws in that argument. Actually, many flaws. First flaw in the argument, when those Christian and Christian conservative went to the poll, the only thing they had to go with was a streak of failure of Donald Trump in his private life. So they could not point to success and say, we think that guy could do something good for the country. They had that streak of documents that shows bankruptcy after bankruptcy after bankruptcy. So flaw number one. major flaw, of course. Number two, Donald Trump did not revive the economy. Donald Trump inherited an economy that was doing great. So Donald Trump did not all of a sudden walk into something that was bad and then turn it around. No, it was already going fine. Yes, it turns out to be good, great. But Donald Trump did not wave a magic wand and turn a bad economy into a good one. It was already good. Three, the most important part, that is for those who profess to be Christian, Jesus asked an interesting question. What would it serve you to gain the world if you lose your soul? That's for those who are looking at amassing wealth as being the reason they continue to support Donald Trump. What would that do for you? That is a question for those who claim to be Christian, for those who profess to be Christian, for those who even believe they are Christian. If that's what you're hanging your hat on, as I mentioned, the Bible doesn't deal in words. You cannot be Christian in words. The Bible deals in actions. In fact, just to close that, I don't read anywhere in the book of Revelation, the book where judgment of what had happened in this life for those who are Christian and not Christian, where God say, welcome, because I remember very clearly you said this and that was beautiful and that's why you should come in. When you gave that answer to that guy that says this and that to you, I was watching and I was so proud of you. None of that is mentioned in the Bible. In fact, Day of Judgment, the Bible talk about things that were done, not said, done. So saying you're Christian would not work. Saying that you preach the gospel would not work too well. What did you do as a Christian? So far, I hope you're watching yourself in the mirror. John Green, he's a director of the Bliss Center of Applied Politics at the University of Akron. He said there are real costs for political parties becoming too closely identified with one religious group or another. Personally, I don't see any problem with someone being religious, Christian, whatever your faith happened to be. One thing is certain about religion in general, It teaches how to be better citizen. Yes, religion teaches how to be better citizen, how to behave properly, how to be useful to society, how to come to the rescue of those who need rescue, how to help those who need help, how to feed those who are hungry, how to clothe those who are naked. So there is nothing wrong with being religious. What is wrong is when you have individuals who pretend to be, who claim to be, who profess to be, and yet doesn't care about the principles of any of such religion. The Bible has a lot of examples of how a Christian ought to behave. And yet, those who profess to be Christian do not come anywhere near or close to those type of principles. Certainly they love the label of Christianity, just they like being called patriots. But that is not sufficient. The only person that they fool is themselves. But the ripple effect of their behavior could be devastating for a society, a country, or even the world, as we so often point to in the case of Adolf Hitler. As such, when people who are supposed to be wise, such as Christian, God is wisdom, remember? People who are supposed to be able to discern good from evil, right from wrong, when those very people are those committing those very atrocities or committing those very sins, then society has serious problem. So it is no surprise that the number of people who call themselves Christian have dropped drastically from 1974 to 2006. We should be concerned as a nation. The foundation of our republic is a foundation of Christianity. As the Republican Party is helping driving away Christianity from our society, one thing is certain. There is a continuing erosion of our democracy as well. So if you are concerned about the future of our country, if you are concerned about your children, your grandchildren, your future generation, it is time that you give up the idea of supporting a political party in order to save the republic. As it stands today, the Republican Party doesn't represent any value. Yes, they say they have core values. They say they have family value, but as we just showed, they don't have any such values, but in words. To save our nation, to save the republic, to save future generation, to save our society, it is time to recognize that the Republican Party is no longer a party with values. For the only thing that seems to remain are the blind leading the blind. I hope this presentation was of importance to you, or at the very least a mirror so that you can see yourself clearly in order to help save future generations. I hope you can join me again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. when we discuss Israel can do no harm. In the meantime, should you have a particular topic you would like us to discuss, send it to us. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. See you tomorrow. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time.